Hi, I'm Rigger, this is Your Right, and today let's talk about Raven's secret portal. It's kinda nice to talk about Raven again, it's been a while. But here's the deal. One of the major talking points since the end of Volume 9 has been who is Raven portaling to? And I have no idea. I'm sure I'll come up with some options, I'm sure other people have too. That's actually not what I'm theorizing about at all, actually. Instead, this is a theory I've had since, whenever the Hound episode first aired. It's been that long, and it's been growing ever since then, and actually gaining support in my mind. Basically, I don't know who this portal is to. It could be someone innocuous, like someone in the bandit crew, just to move around. Could be someone more extreme, like a main villain or something crazy. But I have long had a thought that Raven actually has another portal that will come into play before the end. And that portal is to Summer. Now, in the scene that we see, it isn't clear if Raven has a portal to Summer or not. She was waiting for her and just jumps down from the trees, and how she got there could have been a number of ways. She could have used her portal to Tai, she could have used her portal to Yang, and we've seen before that her portals don't have to appear right next to the person, they can have some distance, so she easily could have done that, or she could have flown here as a bird, whatever. There's a lot of ways this could have gone. I don't know if Raven or Summer were ever that close, despite all the jokes running around on the internet. In actuality, the canon, who knows? But let's look at the facts of the situation first. First of all, we don't know the details about Raven's bond. The way that Yang talks about it, all she said is you can bond to certain people, and when you do, you can create a portal that takes you straight to them. And it sort of feels like it might be love of some sort, especially with the one she's had. I mean, with Tai, obviously there's a relationship there. With her daughter, I mean, there's a motherly bond there. To Crow, there is a sibling bond there. And even to Vanal, it seems like she sort of raised her, so you could put in that there's something there. But we also don't know if that's clear or not, we don't know if that's actually the truth, we don't know all the details of how it works. And yeah, the actual nature of that bond is up in the air, but we do know some other things. We know that Raven is very tactically minded. She will use her portals to travel around Remnant, to escape places, to spy on people, whatever. So, what that means is, with how Raven has acted, there's no reason to assume she'd be above trying to form those bonds and establish portals with people for purely tactical reasons, if that's possible. We don't know if she can do that, but if she could actively try and make portals to people just for her own advantage, she's definitely the type of person that would do that. Also, it seems that the portals don't degrade, or at least don't go away if the person on the receiving end doesn't feel that same way about you. Because all her portals that we still know about are still active, even though her relationships with the people that they're with are not great. So, you can at least assume that the other person's input doesn't matter, so it must just be Raven's bond to them. And you can justify all of that, maybe she still does have feelings for Tai, there was a relationship there. She still, deep down, has feelings for Yang, we've seen that to a degree, despite how she acts. And with Crow, I mean, I guess they're siblings, but they clearly don't see eye to eye and haven't for a long time. So, what I'm saying is, if she had formed a bond with Summer at all, then, even for tactical reasons, or because she legitimately felt, like, close to her in some way, that portal should still be there, if Summer was alive. And, I would also like to add, she had 4 years to form that bond. We get it confirmed by Crow that Team Stark graduate. That is 4 years spent with your team member. So, the tactically minded Raven would surely try and make a portal to Summer, whether that's if you need to kill her one day, or whether it's just to move around a battlefield. Or, if she had an actual bond, it would have formed anyway. So with all of that, despite not actually seeing it on screen yet, it makes highly logical sense that at some point, Raven would have had a portal to Summer should she need it. And just because they don't seem to be on good terms now doesn't mean they never were. And they seem to have connections and are working together in some way, so again, even tactically would make sense. So we've established that. But if that's the sticking point that, well, if Summer was alive, sure, there's a fair bit of narrative set up about that, making the case that might still happen. I mean, maybe not, of course, but there's been this suggestion. Ever since the Hound episode, people have wondered if that perhaps Summer was the catalyst for this. That's where Salem started experimenting because she learned something about Silver Eye, something like that. But that's not just us theorizing things, that was RWBY's theory in universe. The horrifying suggestion she made to Yang is that what happened to the Hound happened to Summer. That's what happened to Mom. Was she the first? We don't know. But either way, the show itself is suggesting that possibility in universe from the characters. So this sets us up, obviously, for some great, awful horror if it is true, like RWBY having to go and kill Summer, albeit a awful but also setting her free, letting her to rest kind of thing, like if she was tormented and she's being tortured and is in this grim way, and maybe RWBY can lay her to rest in a nice way. You know, there's all these kind of things there. Those suspicions also go up even more when Salem, of course, confirms she knows who Summer is on 2 separate occasions. She brings it up to RWBY unprompted, and she reacts with her devilish little smile when Yang mentions it too, and oh, her again. So, Salem definitely knows Summer Rose as more than just a passing, fleeting enemy that, you know, she doesn't care about anymore. Whether that be just because RWBY is her latest sort of opponent, it doesn't really matter. Point is, Salem remembers Summer for some reason, at least enough that she didn't discard the memory immediately. So now we enter the bit of speculation. There's a visual idea that I'm not sure how the show can pass up doing. Something that I think if they get the chance they would do. And that visual is Team RWBY in Evernight Castle. Look, the castle is a cool location. We haven't seen a whole lot of it, but we've seen enough. And it's absolutely enemy territory, the most enemy territory that there ever could be. Which equally puts our heroes on the back foot because they have no help here, but also shows determination that for once, we're invading her stronghold, not the other way around, if the team were to ever make their way there. But then that raised the question to me, if they ever were to go to Evernight Castle, how would you do it? I mean, they have avoided establishing exactly where it is. I mean, we have our suspicions, of course, but in general, they haven't, mapped out how to get there. And even if they wanted to go there, they'd have to find out exactly where it is. Now, maybe Raven knows that information, but the point is, how would you get our team there? Do you think they're going to walk there? Do you think they would survive walking there? It seems to be Grim Central. Your answer could be, well, they could fly there, but the only reason that the ship we see fly there is allowed in is because seemingly Salem's operatives seem to have some kind of pass, because the Grim don't even pay attention to them. And if they did fly in with a fleet, it seems like most people would die, and that would be a pretty poor use of the last bastion of humanity. Not to mention, if you did a frontal assault, you're not exactly sneaking in, and it feels like Salem would come out and decimate everyone immediately. Even with Silver Eyes, I don't think he'd get anywhere near this place. So, that establishes if we ever were to go here, we need to sneak in. And we don't have a map to get there, and we would be detected by Grimm the entire way, and even with Silver Eyes, you're not going to kill them all, and that would let the bad guy know you're coming, and they would destroy you. So, we need a different solution. And there is one. It's Raven. And it's true that basically this just boils down to this is a cool established location, and I'd want to see our heroes here because that's very different, and a very cool idea for things near the climax. And if you want a reason to go here, I mean, there could be a few. One is perhaps leaving a relic here. If Salem left, the lamp here, since it's not really useful anymore, rather than carry it, she might do that. And she's shown a willingness to do that before, to leave it somewhere that she considers highly guarded. Now, that didn't work out, and you could say maybe she should learn from that mistake. But either way, stashing it here would be presumably the safest place on Remnant, that basically no one can get to except your most loyal, and it's surrounded by the pools of destruction and Grim, as far as the eye can see. Logically, it's true, she should keep it on herself, and make it just the hardest thing possibly to get. But making an allowance for our villain to make mistakes, there is a chance that, yeah, she leaves something like that stashed in the castle. Also, honestly, this place with the pool of destruction, I've actually thought that if Salem was going to bring back the gods, if he was going to unite the relics, this is the place she would do it. It's a meaningful place to her, it's where this whole thing sort of began, and it would summon the gods back at least to a place like their pool, and it would, just have that sort of dramatic, climactic air to it. And Salem, if nothing else, seems to have some sort of idea of sentiment when it comes to, losing her daughters, that kind of thing. It feels like the kind of thing she would do. The grand stage would be, she gets the last relic and heads back to Evernight Castle, right by the Pools of Destruction, to summon the gods back to face judgment, all that kind of thing. That feels like something she would do, and it's a good idea for a setting for the climax of the show, because it's very dramatic and crazy. So, in either of these occasions, if the team go wind of this, they would need to get to the castle, either to steal a relic back, or to try and stop her one last time from uniting them, even though she has them all in her possession now. She hasn't actually done the bit where you put them all together. But that would raise the question, how did Team RWBY ever get there? How could they hope to? And that's the answer, is you have Raven make a reveal that actually the summer portal still exists, meaning they can use it to get to the castle. Now, I should say, we have another setup for this, because we've already got the setup that RWBY saw this scene. RWBY knows that Raven knows what happened, so we have the setup that RWBY was going to confront Raven to figure out what happened. So at some point, RWBY will confront Raven for the answers, and that will probably be how we get most of our Team Stark story, perhaps. And with that setup, that can lead to more. So if they perhaps do this confrontation, Raven might let it slip or just deliver the bad news out of guilt that actually that portal is still there. And RWBY demands that she opens it so they go on a rescue mission, of course. Which obviously will turn bad by the end. She'll find Summer all grimmified. Maybe she'll manage to rescue her. Maybe she'll manage to free her with some Silver Eyes trick and burning away the Grim. Or maybe she'll just put her out of her misery. Either way, given what we saw previously, it's probably the death option, but, you know, who knows what can happen in a show. The point is that we have a setup for that confrontation between Raven and RWBY, and if RWBY learned that information, she would definitely press the issue. Now, I know the obvious question then is, if the portal exists, why would Raven have never tried anything? Why would she never try to save her? Why would she never have told anyone? And the answer is pretty clear, because it's Raven. Do you remember how she talks about this stuff? She's not exactly forthcoming with information. She doesn't even want to say Salem's name. The entire existence of Salem, she basically refuses to talk about it whenever possible. She spends her life running from it, terrified of what she's found out. Obviously, her involvement has been completely unmentioned until now. So we only just learned that Raven was involved at all, so she kept that secret too. She didn't seemingly tell Ty, she didn't seemingly tell Crow as far as we know, unless one of them's lying, but we probably don't think that's the case. Raven is just not the type to tell anyone anything, let alone admit her own failures and her own faults and face her own shame. That's like the bottom of the list of things she ever does. Now, she never told Crow what happened, as far as we know, and Ty, but that also could have a very obvious, valid reason for it, and that's a very obvious and valid fear of Salem, and that's why she would never investigate that portal. If she saw what happened, like, you know, the only thing worse than Summer dying would be knowing Summer is alive and taken by Salem, and when Raven was forced to run, she perhaps ran and thought that Summer was about to die. And then when she is already away through her portal or flying off, she realizes, oh wait, Summer didn't die, she's just stuck in Salem's clutches now, and there's nothing I can do about that. Especially with as scared as Raven still is about the whole thing. Do you think she would ever try opening that portal to try and save Summer? No, because she knows as soon as she does, or she thinks as soon as she does, she would be immediately killed by Salem. Of course she thinks that. I mean, obviously the plan was to somehow stop Salem, and it failed, and if Summer couldn't do it, or they couldn't do it together, there's no chance she can do it alone. And it even plays into the way we see Raven act. She seems sort of haunted by her experiences, and as far as torturous information that she could know, something to haunt her every day, imagine instead of feeling shame for Summer dying or perhaps running off, perhaps it's more shame that Summer is still alive and probably suffering right now, and you can't even bring yourself to do anything. Going through God knows what in Salem's hands, and being unable to help and unwilling to try. To open a portal to Salem's castle, are you insane? It's a lost cause. They already tried this and they failed, and it's turned out horribly. We've already seen Raven talk about the concept of mercy, seemingly a mercy killing, but perhaps there is a different mercy here that she thinks she's giving out. That rather than ever mention what happened to Ty or Crow, or ever mention that Summer is still alive and suffering, she just doesn't say anything. She doesn't want them to go off and get themselves killed too on this impossible mission that she knows is impossible, so she just doesn't say anything. And she keeps that awful information to herself, haunting her every day, every waking moment, every second, that Summer is suffering right now, and you can't help, and you can't beat Salem. But of course, that'd be where all this leads, that after all this time, RWBY confronts Raven, and finally, she caves. You know, Raven can't take it anymore, facing her own daughter, and Summer's daughter too, who is basically little Summer. She tells RWBY what happened, and reveals the awful truth, not just that we went to try and take down Salem and failed, and your mom died. No, we went to try and take down Salem, and Summer didn't die. I was forced to retreat. I thought she was dead, but no, she's still somewhere alive in Salem's clutches, suffering. And, you can't go get her, I can't go get her, we would never succeed. RWBY, of course, demands they go, and Raven must come along so they can get out again. They'll need a portal to escape, after all. In fact, all RWBY has to do to break her, I've worked out, is give her a good old shoulder barge, because then it would be the third dramatic shoulder barge she's received from someone that she has a connection to before they go and do something brave against Salem. And yeah, rule of threes, it'll work this time.
If I do this right, there's nothing to worry about.
But I'm gonna do it anyway.
But yeah, that of course would sort of be Raven's quote-unquote redemption. Doesn't make up for everything, but that's her doing her best. That's her character rising to the fears she couldn't face before. And in fact, if you want to know what I would have happen, it would be that they get to Summer and they either rescue her or put her down or whatever, and they get discovered. And they have to get out of there, so Raven makes a portal back to Ty or back to Crow, back to somewhere that isn't Evernight Castle, and she fends off Salem long enough for the girls to escape, and the portal closes. And she dies. She saves her daughter, she has saved Summer from whatever her fate was one way or the other, she has done right by Summer's daughter who she feels she's wronged, and she dies doing a brave deed that she was unwilling to do. Also, I've mentioned before, but it's an amazing way to reveal it then if the Team RWBY and possibly Summer or not go through the portal closes behind them, and you can see, Raven battling Salem. And, they yell out, and Yang goes, "Mom!" And the portal closes. And then it's all quiet for a moment. And then, in horrific confirmation of what just happened, Yang's eyes catch fire. She has been gifted the powers. Her last thought, Raven's last thought, was of her daughter and saving her daughter. And those powers have now appeared on Yang. Raven has died. And in fact, a moment after that, because it's better revealed with the fire first, you can even do one of these scenes if you want. Although again, I think this sort of undoes some of that drama of just implying it. But you could do the whole soul-linking scene thing. Or, if you wanted to go slightly differently, it could also be that Cinder is involved, and Cinder can be the one to kill her. You don't do the power reveal thing. You instead get a rematch of this fight, and this time Cinder wins, possibly with Salem's help, and Cinder takes the powers, and that can be how she actually achieves multiple maiden powers, because she actually needs to do that at some point. They need to follow up on that, because it's so far she's just been such a failure at that. She needs a way to do it at some point. Either way, point is, I'd bring Summer back into things with this because it wraps up so much. It wraps up a lot of Summer. It wraps up a lot of the Stark thread. It's equally horrific and heroic for our team. And it just capitalizes on the cool concept of Team RWBY being in Salem's castle without all that pesky travel nonsense. Oh, and also, on a little variation of that, you could also do it where Raven sends them through and she's still not brave enough to go with them. And then, it's again that Raven is sort of letting her fears get the best of her and she isn't helping. And then on the other side, they get into trouble. And right when you think everything's going to go wrong, the portal opens and Raven flies out at them. Because she seems to sort of monitor what happens on the other side of the portals, or at least she did in Volume 2, how she just knew to show up. Either way, that would be cool because what that does is it capitalizes on the whole you only get saved once thing. That you only get saved once, I'm not doing it again. But of course, in this moment of need to try and correct her mistakes, she flies out of the portal in Salem's castle, she stops Salem from getting to the team, she lets the team go back through the portal to Ty or Crow or whatever, and she holds off the bad guys long enough for the team to get out, and she dies. So it's wrapped up so much there. Of course, in the end, she broke for her daughter. Of course she broke her word. She is going to save her if she really had to, especially at a moment like that. It's even more dramatic because, again, the team think that Raven has let them down and let them walk into this castle and still let her fears get the better of her, but no, she comes through at the last moment and does her best to right her wrongs. As she portals in, she saves them, she confronts her fear, she makes a portal for them to escape, she dies holding off the enemy until they get out, and she's helped correct the mistake that happened with Summer, whatever it was. And yeah, basically the whole scenario is kind of too good not to do. And there's an explanation for how to do it that ties things up all over the series. It ties up Stark history, Raven's shame, the Hound experiments, the castle, the portals, Raven's warning about not saving them a second time, stuff that ties all the way back to Volume 2 for Raven, and all the Summer stuff which obviously ties all the way back to the start of the show. There's lots of elements here. So, That's sort of my theory, and my pitch, I suppose. Summer is alive in Evernight Castle, perhaps houndified, or some other horrid experiments that led to the Hound, and Raven will be how they get there, because she secretly knows that portal exists, she just can't confront that reality yet. But she will, when she's confronted by her daughter again, and Ruby again, and breaks. And when she tells them it's still active, they will head there to go and deal with that, and when they do, Raven will get her moment for redemption to save her daughter, even though she said she wouldn't, to try and correct her mistakes with Summer that she's been running from her whole life, to face down her fear of Salem, which has haunted her ever since, and do all the right things, and she can die in a heroic way, and finally be willing to move past the cowardice that she buries deep within her. Anyway, I thought it was pretty good, thought it was a good idea, and yeah, I mean, hiatus is starting now, so there will continue to be RWBY videos on the channel for the foreseeable future. How things play out after that, who knows? There will also be a variety of other things starting to be added to the channel, so look out for that. But yeah, until next time, my name is Rigger, hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope I did alright.